Hey everyone, welcome back into our 3 o'clock live stream. We're going to break down Solana and MATIC today. And the main reason we wanted to do it is to take a look at how you construct a strategy for 2023. Because you got to think about bags you're going to hold and how you're going to play the market in 2023. 2022 is done. Everybody's kind of figuring out how to lick their wounds and deal with some tax loss harvesting, all those kind of things. But you need to be planning and setting up for 2023. So we got a special guest for you and that is James over at InvestAnswers. He'll be joining us. And my name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. All right, thanking our sponsor. That is Trezor. You guys know how passionate I am about self-custody. We have been off these exchanges, all these craziness out there that's been going for months, and I am so happy. This is what gives me peace of mind, and that is self-custody. Whatever device you like to use it. I don't care. What I care about is that you're not holding tokens in places that you don't control. That's the number one thing. And if you're going to do that, then check out Trezor. I think you guys might like them. They've got a great app. They also have a slew of coins you can, of course, flow onto there as apps. They've got a great device. I have this very device that's on screen right now, and it's one I like. So make sure and check them out. You can see the Trezor Model 1 and the Model T right there. It's a little more pricey, but if you want the kind of the budget model, go to that $69 deal. Anyway, pretty simple. All you have to do, click the link below and you're there. All right, so this is going to get into it today. It's going to be fun. We'll have a poll at the end. Maybe we'll get a chance to take some questions. I want to welcome my friend, Mr. James from InvestAnswers. Great to have you back, man.
Good to see you, sir. You've had a busy day. Back to back.
We have been. Yeah, we've been a little crazy. The guys, they don't give up. I mean, the crypto pit is a constant machine. Research teams flowing in and out. They're like a prize fighter. They just keep coming at you round after round after round, which is fun.
The news cycle is pretty intense as well. So
oh yeah, no kidding. Happening. Yeah, it is. Well, I am so glad you're doing. We had a chance to talk a little bit before the show, so I'm glad you're doing well. Happy holidays to you, my friend. All right.
You too.
Let's get into a couple of things. First, I want to frame up the ecosystem of these two spectacular tokens. Many Solana lovers out there in the audience right now. If you're a Solana lover, smash that like button right now. We're going to know who you are. And I'm going to look at the ecosystem of Solana. These are the ones we've been tracking, and we did this after Breakpoint. And I was impressed. When I did the video after Breakpoint, I was impressed with the things I saw. You had Hive Mapper, Phantom Wallet, of course we know, Magic Eden coming in there, and Steppen, Star Atlas, Solana Spaces, which we know are the physical stores. They have one obviously down here in South of Miami, in Woodwood. Solana Pay, we've seen and talked about that a lot. Audius, if you guys haven't checked that project out, this is a great audio product that's similar to kind of a Gala Music. I won't say it's neck for neck. Render, one of my favorite tokens. Come on, this is one of my favorite. Helium I have shaded on a little bit in the sense that I just don't know if this is the future, even though they've got some good partnerships. And then Teleport was the one I really loved coming out of Breakpoint, and then PUBG's their mobile game. So some cool stuff here, James. You got to look at this and think devs are active in Solana. What do you think about their ecosystem right now?
It's very impressive. And in fact, going back to Breakpoint, I was very excited on the Saturday, I think it was. Yeah. And then, of course, everything, all the proverbial stuff hits the fan 24 hours later. It's like, oh, no. So it just shows you, I always say that investing is a blood sport, and no matter how much fundamental analysis and research you do, there are macro factors or black swans or whatever that can take you down. So everybody be careful out there because of that exact reason. But that doesn't change the way in which this team is building. I'm in touch with some of the guys over there and watching what they're doing. And they were born in the bear market, which is a good thing. And as a result of that, they know how to survive the bear market. They know how to be frugal, just like any kind of startup right now, how to make the dollar last and focus on building things that actually drive value.
Well, runway is going to be a big deal for some of these projects right now. You've got to be able to make it through maybe the next 24 months with a lot of depressed market conditions, but more importantly is less and less money from the VC space flowing into the market. So we're not going to see down rounds and things like that like we've seen in the past, which I think will start to put some pressures on some really high quality projects, which I feel we're going to lose some in 2023 that are going to be heartbreaking like projects that are just going to roll up and say, yeah, we tried and didn't make it. So be aware. Everything you're investing in out there, just accept that it's going to go to zero and you'll be fine. That means you're only investing something you can afford to lose. That's the way I look at it. Yeah. Now, Bitcoin, that's a little different deal. I kind of look at that one a little differently. I want to jump over to the Polygon ecosystem. Polygon Studios, their games program going crazy. DraftKings, NFT marketplace, the Ticketmaster NFL deal. That one was a good one. Adobe comes in with their NFT integration for the Behance social media platform. Then you had Meta, Instagram. That hasn't launched yet, but when it does, woo, that could be huge. Flipkart came in. This was on an e-commerce marketplace. This is all based in India. Again, big market. Reddit, of course, we all know about what's happened over on Reddit and why we've seen so much transaction volume on MATIC with Reddit. Disney's integration in their incubator. The Sandbox also integrating Warner Music, tying in. Then you got Nike coming in with .swoosh, and this really got my attention. eBay comes in with a slight touch. Starbucks, I think, fell flat on its face. And then eventually we're going to have a Robinhood wallet. Maybe. We'll see. Even though they say end of year, maybe we'll start to see a few. We had a guy, I think, in Crypto Pit that might be like number in the top 100 accounts that will get it. So we might see it early. What are your thoughts on the MATIC ecosystem and how they've been able to, kind of transcend the market in this really bad time?
So the MATIC team has done an incredible job. In fact, early on in 2021, MATIC was always my third choice. It was always Ethereum, Solana, MATIC, based on our models. And their partnership team is second to none. They have scored some amazing partnerships. Very much of it, as you saw, is kind of NFT centric, but that is the on-ramp for retail and investors to kind of get into the crypto space. You had a show not too long ago about a former president dabbling as well. So this is all good. It teaches people how to use wallets, which is probably the biggest gating factor for people to adopt crypto. And people find it entertaining and fun. Like I've never had a baseball card or anything in my life, but that's the analog of where we are today with NFTs. Now, there's other stuff happening too. I don't think you mentioned it, but Helium is migrating onto the Solana blockchain in a couple of weeks. And each Helium hotspot, of which I can't remember, there's over 1 million of them, will be getting a Solana NFT. That'll be kind of their ID, brand, something else. Yeah. And that's kind of exciting too. But it's really is a hot race between both these platforms. And I watch the daily active users and transactions. There's kind of up, down, one, the other, depending on the day. So it's a fun time. But it must be said as well, Solana got one hell of a kick in the teeth after what happened by association with who can remain nameless. And that is, again, the nature of this space.
When I look at Solana, the things that you and I have talked about over the years in Solana, we've had kind of this jousting back and forth in a very friendly nature, in the sense of I'm not a huge fan, but I've bought Solana, I've sold Solana. I love what they're doing in terms of a vision of the tech, because I'm a technologist. I love technology advancement and innovation. To me, that's a 10 for Solana. The problems I've seen are some of the other things. When I look at tokenomics, I look at the ecosystem, the token side of things, as well as what I see right now, and that is the problems facing them ahead. And you look at all the investors that are, kind of tied with Solana to a certain extent. The question is, are there any more shoes to drop, is my concern. When you look at just, for instance, the daily transactions for Solana, especially around top chains. So you look at Solana setting at 19 million, Polygon coming at 3.1, Avalanche coming in at 2 mil, Ethereum, of course, off the charts, but near, kind of coming in small little clip in there, and Aptos, which is, Solana connected as well. What are your thoughts on how Solana, and if Solana can even maintain these kinds of transaction leads? Now, a lot of this has been voting, but where do you think this is going to go maybe in 2023?
Well, before we start that, I want to cover off on one point you hinted at before, was VCs. And there's a lot of misconceptions that, Solana is a VC chain. But most of the top chains were initially funded by VCs. And I think Solana raised about $300 million. Polygon raised 450 million, but
Totally.
it's very, very quiet. So, anything to build something new from scratch and get adoption. In fact, there's rumors out there. I don't know if they're true or not. So allegedly, a lot of the partnerships that MATIC have were actually kickstarted by funding from MATIC. Did you hear that as well?
Interesting. I haven't heard that yet. No.
So that's just putting the VC story aside. So you can buy partnerships. Big tech. Microsoft.
Yes.
Adobe and Oracle. All those guys. That's how it works. Is you pay to play.
For sure.
So there's a little bit of that too in this space. So beware of that.
I think that could be. You bring up a good point. That is a very good point that people should be aware. Listen, big business runs that way. We see these kind of partnership deals all the time in traditional business, regular Web 2 business, much less what we're going to see here in Web 3. And I think this is the thing now you have me thinking, because with Polygon, the thing that I've really championed about them, and I don't tell people to go buy Polygon. I'm just saying I like this technology team and what they've done from a biz dev side. And I'm like, dude, I would love to have this biz dev team because they've just inked deal after deal. So that does make me start to question, maybe there is some things going on. Who knows? But I'll trust, because I'm a trusting guy, that all these things are all above board and we're seeing good movement in the space. But do you think this is, from a transaction, back to the transaction topic, when you look at Solana, let me go to the slide here. This goes into that daily active type. So you can kind of see here's the wallets for Sol, and then here's the daily transactions. And most of this is vote transaction right in here. So some people would look at this and say, all right, well, this is all great, but not a lot of general transactions here. Do you think this is something that will start to settle down in 2023, or what do you feel is driving that split in terms of transactions?
Yeah, well, once again, go back to breakpoint. I always said the key for the future for a blockchain is to do 1 million TPS. Then you can run all sorts of scalable applications, like run a stock exchange, run medical IDs, medical records, whatever the case may be. This is what they proved they could do in Lisbon a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. They took the test dev site up to 1.2 million TPS without breaking. So that is a huge part. One of the things that is kind of a slight weakness for Polygon is it's beholden to the mothership as kind of like a base transaction layer, Ethereum.
I see. Okay.
And, but they are the clear leader in that space. And it goes back to the kind of, it's like a religious topic. What's better, monolithic or modular?
Yeah.
So if you had a house, would you rather one house, or would you rather 8 different Lego blocks you stick together and hope for the best?
Well, it's really not a true comparison, because it's layer 1, layer 2. That to your point right there is that you do have the dApp development ecosystem where Polygon is the layer 2 off of Ethereum, and we know the rollups and how that works, and this is a tool set for Ethereum, but they're very tied to Ethereum's hip. Totally agree with that. Yeah. But would you not counter that there's opportunities there from the Ethereum dev system with MATIC?
Absolutely. And that's why, people say, oh, Solana guys, like, well, 82% of my crypto is Bitcoin. I'm about 12, 15% Ethereum, and the other 5% is Solana. So if I was the Solana guy, wouldn't I be 100% Solana?
Yeah,
no,
for sure.
Because that's all about portfolio allocation and risk management. The further you go out in the risk frontier, the more return. And we'll talk more about that hopefully in a minute too, comparing the two assets. Yeah. But that's just the nature of the deal. And if, as I always say, if layer ones take off and they start disrupting things like traditional finance, wow, these things will be worth an awful lot in 5 to 8 years.
I agree with that, but we've got to get there through a lot of thrashing in the jungle, and that concerns me right now with teams. Either one that move really slow, I won't say the name, but have great tech, and I love what they're trying to do. But it's, again, can they last through these really hard times of regulation, consumer confidence? It's just continuing to be pounded. And then you have all this, drama in the industry as a whole. And I hope that because this is what I talked about earlier in the day, I hope some of these projects make it through. I'm concerned we could see some of the best ones in our industry fall in 2023. Is there anybody that you're worried about right now?
There's a couple of names I won't remain, and I won't name them because, as you know, it can be a very tribal world. But
Yes.
people just need to look at adoption and usage. My simple analogy for layer ones, layer twos. In fact, I've always considered MATIC like a layer one because of its independence and growth and scale and partnership and the stuff that they do, even though they're a layer two.
Yeah.
But an analog I like to use is a shopping mall. Do you want a shopping mall with key kind of stores, the anchor stores at each end, and how they're all structured? And do you want it, with a lot of customers going through every single day, spending a lot of money, being very active, or you want a mall where 3/4 of the stores are boarded up and nothing's happening? And that's the way people need to think about these different platforms.
I totally agree. I look at the project, the dApps, whether the dApps are going to make it through, even though many of these dApps on some of these chains are in the, when you're running in the bull market, everybody looks great, everybody looks amazing, and because everybody's winning. You get in the bear markets, money starts running out, devs start moving into other applications, they start looking at maybe shifting industries. We'll see a lot of people now migrating back into Web 2. We're losing a lot of devs, which I think this is the thing that hurts my heart the most, because I know how hard it is to bring devs to market, and losing devs back to Web 2, not good. So I feel like any project that continue to grow on that dev trail, whether it's Solana, MATIC, anyway, just keep them in Web 3, moving the ball forward, because I think that's really the future. If you look at daily active addresses on Polygon, again, not too bad. I mean, they had, obviously, during the high times back here in October 2021, that was pretty much Metaverse week in their moves. But they've also had these big bumps and then a little bit of adjustments here. Transaction-wise, I would say decently holding overall. And in itself, I think this is, again, one of those projects that I look at. I think this is good enough for what's happening in the market right now, because I don't know that, even though they have all those project partnerships, all this utility baked in, we don't have enough use case, that's really drawing in on what those transactions really can play into. So that's a concern of mine. As far as price, go ahead.
You mentioned Starbucks as well. That's a classic example of a fizzle-out situation.
Yes,
and that's the thing.
Not happy about that.
Exactly. These chains need to go after true adoption with something that has high utility as they go forward. And obviously, a side of NFT with their coffee is not what coffee drinkers want, like myself. So,
well, I think they had the idea. This was Starbucks leading the way on this. This was obviously not Polygon or even probably a dev that was really focused on it. They just wanted to get Starbucks in the roster. But Starbucks, because we did a breakdown video of it, there's a lot of problems there on that. Now, granted, it's beta. I always love beta projects because it's designed to go break and fix it and then figure out how to iterate on top of that. So I hope that they're the ones that can help moving. But I look at what Nike did with that swoosh and I go, wait a minute, this is really well done. It's got utility. It's flowing quickly. They have a really good plan. So that hurts me when I see a big chain like Starbucks, because that could hurt Polygon next year in the short term, because other chains may not say, hey, I'm not going to go on Polygon. I don't feel like that's the way to go. And it may have nothing to do with Polygon. So I am concerned about that. Let's talk about price for a minute. This is crypto since April 2021. So ADA, this is one of the charts I think you chose or showed on your show. Near coming in minus 75, ETH down, DOT down, and then Sol obviously since that period of time. When you look at that compared, and you mentioned this earlier in the show, you may have a chart or a slide you want to show to us on that. If you go back prior to that and you were early on, just like if you were early on in ETH, at $100, things are different right now for you than most people who bought at 2,500 or almost 3,000. What is your anticipation for how Solana pulls out of this?
Well, that's an interesting question. If I may, I would like to show a couple of things, and that talks to both Polygon, Solana. So Let me see if I can make this work. Toggle to screen sharing.
There you go.
Whoops.
You'll have to flip over to your, there you go.
All right. And I want to.
Once you have it, we'll cut it in.
All right.
Make sure, by the way, guys, is smash like if you like James on the show here. We love having guys that come on. All right, what do you got here? My discipline. 500 days out here. Woo.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things, and just went through a similar exercise. I think people need to think, okay, let's take us to the actual Bitcoin halving, because a lot of change will happen in crypto over this time frame.
True.
It's very important as well to look at fundamentals. You are very good at that. You look at all of the stuff like partnerships, etc. Technical analysis. Where do we come from? Where do we go? You show the chart there about how the manipulation by Alameda spiked Solana price and many other tokens, and that caught people out because they jumped in. They got FOMO at, say, heaven forbid, 200 plus, and now they're really hurting. Then tokenomics of the platform, centralization, very important as well. And I focus primarily on layer ones and store of value, which is Bitcoin. That's it, because don't get too distracted with too much other stuff, because there's simply not enough time in the day to analyze everything. And put together a kind of what I do with Folio. Now, this is kind of an interesting way of looking, food for thought for the audience, is what would happen if all the top names that have good tokenomics, good use cases, good adoption, got halfway back to their all-time high price. What would the return be? If you look at the far right-hand corner, you've got Polygon MATIC. It can do a 3x from here. If you look at the graph, it can do nearly 1,400%, which is a 14x. Solana, about 550, 560%. Then you got Engine Coin, Phantom, Near, Aave, Uniswap, Chainlink, Chiliz, Cosmos, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Quant. That's kind of the way I look at the world, and I kind of hedge my bets. And that's just halfway to all-time high. If they get back to all-time high, it's double that. The other thing as well, we look at a thing called the Crypto Compendium Score, where we analyze all tokens across a whole bunch of different metrics that look at centralization, inflation, tokenomics, etc. And here you can see very quickly, MATIC doesn't score as well as other names up the list. I blocked out the rest because this is kind of proprietary, but for your show, I'll show you the top three. So MATIC has a score of 6.4 versus Solana 7.6. Ethereum is the winner, of course, on this. And we have a thing called SCP score. All year since April 2021, when we built this, MATIC was always number 3. And the amazing thing today is it hasn't changed. And the composite score, which you take a combination of the compendium score with the SEC composite score, same thing. The ranking hasn't changed, but this is a very good tool to identify tokens that wouldn't kind of do well over time. Then validators, this is the decentralization level, all the top smart contract platforms, and you can see Bitcoin, Ethereum do incredibly well. You've got Solana ranking there at 31. I think it's third overall. And you go down the list. One of the concerns I have with MATIC is the Nakamoto coefficient is only 3. In addition, look at, well, this is a portfolio play of what I did. I actually, in this portfolio, I did allocate towards MATIC, but the percentage, if we can, this chart was MATIC, $60 out of a $2,000 portfolio, which is about 3% of the bag, as it were. But I went hard
on Solana. Yeah, 660 on Solana, 600 on ETH. So more so on Solana then, right?
Solana was the biggest bet, 35% or 30% of the portfolio, 33% of the portfolio, and Ran did his too. Yes. So ETH was my number 2, Bitcoin number 3. And again, it goes back to that chart I showed you with the upside. Let's for a second to remind everybody, this is a big part of the thinking, because some of these names are so badly beaten down, like the graph. If that even gets a tenth of the way back to the all-time high, it'll outperform ETH and Bitcoin. So that's the way I kind of things up in my mind. Vibe, yes, as well. And then the final thing that...
Let me cut in right there for a second, because I feel like this is going to be something that plays into the market in a bigger way, and that is this whole regulatory environment that we're facing right now, which seems to be, I would say that we're getting enough ramp up on that that is causing some potential heartburn along a lot of projects. Do you think this will flip the switch on a lot of these altcoins if we get everything deemed as a security in the next, say, 2 years?
So this is the tricky thing. So a lot of people think, oh well, all altcoins will be smashed if they are deemed securities. No, they just go they'll go offshore. I mean, 4% of the U.S. population is here. I think only the big names, the big layer ones, will be able to be compliant. Yes, they'll get a smack on the wrist, but the time it's going to take for all this to come through the system is just going to take forever. Therefore, don't hold your breath for the SEC. We've seen the XRP Ripple case go on for 3+ years now.
Yeah,
at least
almost 3 years. Yeah.
And apparently they're going to come to a conclusion. But imagine they start prosecuting another name, another 3 years, and there's 18,000 to go. I mean, so I don't know what they're going to do, but as we saw as well, the SEC has a lot of egg on their face right now.
Hey, James, let's flip you back to your camera off your slide. And so we can bring you back in on the split. Yeah, there you go. Here in a second, we'll get you back here on the split. Because I want to look at a slide that you do on composite ATR and all-time high versus ATL scores.
Yes.
So now I'm going to show you this slide. This one came over from you. And because I want to understand how to read this. I look at where Solana is right here. Kind of, you can kind of see that, guys. I think everybody can see that. And then you look over here at MATIC. Is it better to be on this side of the composite ATR score or better to be down here?
Yeah, well, you want to be kind of
this
is the tricky thing, and this is the reason I kind of built this thing, because I wanted to. I hope my camera is coming back, or you don't even need to see me. What I wanted to do is try to figure out, okay, how long has a token been in the market? So you take ETH, you're going back 9 years. You take something new like Solana, it's 2 years and change. And then what was the all-time low? Of course, Ethereum was trading for fractions of pennies. That's why it's the same thing with Bitcoin. But for some of the newer names, you have to take into account the kind of time series, how long they've been around. And then what you need to do is figure out, okay, what was the all-time high? What was the all-time low? How far is it off the all-time low? Because you do not, I repeat, everybody, you do not want to be holding an asset that is bumping off the floor, especially if it's been around for more than 2 years, because that's an extremely unhealthy sign. It's like a beep, flat line, and an ambulance.
It's the death score.
You don't want to hear it.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So somewhere kind of in the middle is good. And then you have, like, on the very far right-hand side, Aptos. It just ICO'd, it just released.
Right.
And that's why it's there.
It's early. It's early for that one. But you got Near down here on this end. You've got Avalanche down here on this end. There's HBAR coming in. Looking at some other ones. Cardano right there, kind of in the middle of the track. Here's Render Token. Sandbox. There's a lot of the gaming stuff. But anyway, I just was wondering how to read this. In the sense of what is better to be on this chart.
Yeah. So this doesn't tell you to buy or sell, but it gives you a warning as where you don't want to be. And I'm trying to add a third and fourth dimension to it, which is kind of the time series. So I have a weighting for the delta between all-time high and all-time low. And then I'm going to add a time series for how long they've been in existence to try to get a better feel for how it works. So stay tuned. You've motivated me to do version 2 of this, and I'll share it with you.
Fun. Yeah, please do. Because we would love to, because this one intrigued me. But yeah, exactly. For some of the newer names, I think, you need to kind of roll up on that. That'll be a good one. Hit your screen share button. Just unclick it. That way it won't take, because I think it's going into your second screen over there, so we can bring your camera back in. There was a couple of other things I wanted to jump to, and that is price. Let's go over to price real quick. Here's MATIC, Solana. Obviously, you guys know the colors. But MATIC in the purple, Solana, we know the problems there. My question to you on this is, we understand why and what has happened here. To a certain extent, I think Solana was a victim. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time because of the liquidity issue. What's happened now with, SBF, the multi-coin capital guys, the tie-in to David Sachs, all those VC early. I mean, we got a lot going in that space now that is being revealed. With that being the case, and I think I asked this earlier, I wasn't sure I got your thought on this, is do they have enough runway? Do they have enough, pump to be able to really make it through? Or are we going to start seeing a potential, convergence of devs moving over to other projects?
Yeah, I don't think so. There was a very interesting survey I covered a few weeks ago about the developers. 70+% of the developers are staying put. They love the challenge and coding on Rust, etc. So that's not a big concern. Second of all, runway per annotonally, they have 30 months to go. Third, regarding kind of liquidity risk, dumpage risk, any Solana that Alameda had to sell, they sold what they could to shore up the FTT token. Yeah. The rest is stuck in bankruptcy court, so there'll be no dumpage from there in quite some time. Okay. And also, some of the shrewd investors that are left, they know this is one of the most liquid with highest upside assets they have in their bag. If you look at multi-coin capital and the bag of crap that they have, and there's some names that are just head scratchers. What were they doing? Same thing with others. So I don't think there's a lot of what I call dumpage risk in the very near future at all. And there's lockup periods too. So that's not really a concern. They have enough runway. Again, the next 500 days are critical. You saw, like when I started looking at Solana, I fell in love with proof of history technology. There was no adoption. There was no users. There was no dApps. Right. It was a year and a half ago. It was barren. Excuse the pun. But it just came a long way in such a short amount of time. And that's what's impressive. Like, it's way beyond where I thought it would be at this stage of the game, despite the market conditions and everything else.
Yeah, just to clarify, the chart that we were showing was price and developer growth. So you had the price there and wasn't there price on this? Or was just all developer growth? All right, development activity. And then here's the development activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here's development activity on Sol. Right there. So it's kind of been hovering along and hasn't really seen massive growth there outside of what I would say over the last little bit. It seems to have a little bit of life in it. But if you go back here to Polygon, again, developer activity very high. So again, this I think is just going to be something to play out in this bear market of how these two tokens will respond. And I noticed when you went back to your picks there on Rand's show, you had Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, MATIC was in your bag, and I think that was it, was it? Did you have 4 or 5?
I was 10 names, but basically I'm always, a lot of stuff I do is either in threes or Pareto efficient or both. So it was an 85% allocation to the top 3 names. And then 15% was kind of, I call the degen play. And within that was kind of MATIC, Aave, Uniswap, those types of names. Okay. The graph, because of the upside potential. And that actually was up 11% in the week.
What about the supply schedule here? When you look at the supply side, tokenomics-wise, that's one of the key things that people will always kind of convert to. It's fairly easy to understand for most investors out there. If you're new, you probably should learn a little bit about how supply schedules work. You're looking here at MATIC's supply schedule. And let's see, here we are in 22, looks like right here. So right there on my mouse, we're literally at this stair step right there, kind of at the top, to give you guys a kind of an example. Then you go over and look at Solana, and we've got February, let's go to November 22 right here. And it seems like it's just going to be going up. Would this not hurt the validity of Solana based on this supply schedule?
If you look carefully at that, you'll see what's going up is the staking rewards. Everything else is done. It's pretty much
everything
stopped.
Else is flat. So staking rewards continue to climb.
It's all staking rewards. And that's what fuels the business. Like anything else, there's technically no max cap on things like Ethereum and Solana because they require that fuel to pay for the validators, to keep the system up and running and everything else. Right. But it's all about an adoption game. Right. If you are the best, cheapest, and fastest, normally it's pick 2. But if you have all 3, you become the black hole that sucks everything in. And that's the gambit here, everybody. What will win the day? Now, if they start doing a decentralized Uber and Helium and a whole bunch of other stuff, sky's the limit. And that's
sure.
why if you look at the cumulative NFTs sold to date, the number, and Solana was late to the game, but they now match the exact number.
I don't know
Ethereum
though. MATIC is coming in strong now, obviously with their integrations into the number of projects. The question, if you give them the same time frame, how will that lay out? Who will control the NFT
and that's what's interesting to look at, because in fact, even if you look at those developer scores of the charts you showed previously, if you go back to when all those bear market began, June 2022,
right there,
and the number of developers. So if you look at this chart, this is Solana. The developers say June, July 2022 to today, kind of flat. If you go to the MATIC one, you'll see the same type of thing happen. So you go back to June 2022 to today,
this is June.
It's the same level. It did have that spike back in early November, whatever it was.
Right here. Spike was right here.
Big spike. Yeah. But now it's back to where it was in the summer. So again,
right here.
It would be nice to see these two charts overlaid against each other, and then it might tell a bit of a better picture. But I always say as well, you're dead right. Follow the developers, follow the money, because they are the people that allocate their time, which is the most precious asset that they have. And they want to get maximum bang for that buck as well. So it makes complete sense. Now, there is one thing that does...
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. You were talking about supply before.
Yes.
One piece does give me pause, and that's why it doesn't score well on the IA compendium score, is the fact that 69% of all MATIC is controlled by 12 whales, which is like 7 billion MATIC. 12 people own nearly 70% of MATIC, and that is scary. Now, there are other tokens out there that are a lot worse, but that is one of the things that scares me. When you compare this to Solana, the top 20, the whales control about 20% of the supply versus 70% from MATIC.
How does that play out in the MATIC allocation? If you look at this, here's Binance Launchpad. There's the staking. Ecosystem setting at 23%. Private investors, team, 16%, advisors, and then the foundation. How do you mean the whales would be controlling this token?
All I know is per data on, I think it's Crypto Quant, the whales have just 12 people, 12 individuals who have 70% of MATIC. So if you add up those charts, elements you saw, we would take 3 of those pieces, and there's 12 individuals. The Binance, everyone, the team, the foundation. What happens in foundation type allocations is always very dodgy, but right there, 22 plus 60, call it 40. That's 60%. The ecosystem, what's in the ecosystem? That's probably owned by
23
part of a couple of founders. And I think the top 4 founders, or the top couple of founders, own all the keys for huge allocation as well.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's, again, it gives me pause.
Yeah, Sol allocation, a little different. They're heavy on seed sale. The founding sale is there. Validator, though, very small number, 8.2% strategic. And then you got the big one, which is the team, 20%, and then foundation itself at 20%. You like this token balance right here. Is that true?
No, what I like within Solana is the inflation. The inflation is very much under control compared to other names. This is the phenomenon, unfortunately, that happened back in 2019, 2020. There was somewhere between 40 and 60% was allocated towards what I call insiders, and that is where things. You got
seed sale, founding sale, foundation setting at almost, that's 45, 65% of that token. And then the team is 20%, that's 85%. Which looks to me, I always worry about that where we get into this too much concentration of token power, just like you mentioned on some information about MATIC that I did not know, but now I'm going to research that one. So you're teaching me some, as always, I learn stuff from you, James, so thank you again.
We show that again. The key thing I think to look at is kind of the price suppression of things like token inflation. Right. And there are many tokens that have very high inflation. In fact, anything over 10, 12% for me is the kiss of death.
Yeah, I think this is the scenario. All right, so you've kind of given a little bit of your picks for 2023. Do you think that, I have a few other questions. When you look at what could work right for Solana, because there's some things that could go right for them and could literally turn the ship quickly. What would those be in 2023 leading into a halving? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there's three big factors. One, obviously the DeFi, with all that happened with FTX, scared a lot of people off. So that actually shrank rapidly, but it's peaking back up again. That's very important. So DeFi applications for both MATIC and Solana are very, very important for the future. The other thing that's critical is wallets. Wallets are key to adoption, and the Phantom wallet has now 3.2 million users. They're becoming kind of a cross-chain wallet now with, I think, Ethereum and Polygon, if I'm not mistaken, which will open up a whole new world, and they'll become a formidable threat to MetaMask. MetaMask is very clunky, in my opinion. I much prefer the user experience of Phantom, and to be able to. And they're going to do a lot more DeFi stuff within the wallet as well as they go forward, not only just trading NFTs, but doing kind of DEX stuff, which they already kind of have, staking, all that good stuff. And the third aspect will be kind of Internet of Things. I hate that term, but IoT applications that drive a lot of adoption. They're decentralized Uber Teleport, is it? I think it's Teleport.
Yeah, that's Teleport.
And moving Helium to that blockchain. And other things like that will be big, and all the other stuff that MATIC is working on. Again, they're both very, very solid places to be for the future.
Right.
The question goes back to risk reward. Who's going to win the day? It doesn't really matter. The two can survive. But the question is, what's the upside?
Yeah. And sometimes people have to select. And some of you guys out there right now, you may select both these tokens and say, these are in my 23 bag, and I'm going to play this out till the next bull run, and we'll see how it all stands, because I'm going to dollar cost average and do those kind of strategies. One thing that I'm watching, though, James, is this Web3 smartphone potential, where this is going. And both of them kind of have a play going right now. We'll go to Polygon. Here, let's show this one. So they partnered with Nothing Phone. And if you guys haven't seen the Nothing Phone, I don't know if you guys have looked at this phone. This is a pretty sexy phone. I love this phone. I found out about this from Marquez, MKBHD. If you don't know who MKBHD is, go watch his review on the Nothing Phone. The point is that we're going to see some Web3 smartphones probably next year, like real use case, wallets on them, real potential participation in the NFT ecosystem. And then, of course, we know that you've got the Solana phone. And there's been a couple of things around the Solana phone. This is a review on the Nothing Phone versus the iPhone 14 that I was watching. But the Solana phone also is very sexy. I like that one too. So I'm kind of torn between, I look at both these and I think, wow, well, whoever wins the phone race on this. Now, I would say on Solana's benefit is they kind of have a little bit of an in and an angle with with Helium, and they're tied to T-Mobile. So there could be a little bit of a strategic play there that gets into
third
it.
Angle too. You got to remember the team from Solana came from Qualcomm, and they have engineered a chip that has embedded security natively in the hardware,
which is going to be very important. That's going to be supremely important, provided that Apple and Samsung doesn't figure out this model yet for a Web3 phone. I think they will down the road, but there's going to be some early adopters. We could see a third phone emerge in the marketplace. When I say third phone, today it's Android, iOS, but we could see a Web3 phone emerge. I know it's a small market, guys, but when people understand the utility use case of a Web3 phone and what ID is going to be in the future of Web3, what payment is going to be, the ability to do things around digital assets, wallets, etc., next couple of years could get really exciting in that area.
Exactly.
For sure.
Well, that's me, and I don't like to count chickens before they're hatched, as they say. So I don't play a lot of credence onto the actual phone because of the price point of the phone. These things are all 4 digits. They're $1,000 plus, which limits the market. I mean, the pricing is the same as an iPhone, and they're just far too expensive. So they do need a cheaper version. But I would pay $5,000 for a phone where I could be anywhere in the world, and I could pull up my TradingView and have a DEX that's integrated with my wallet and be able to move at the speed of light in a secure manner.
Yeah, secure.
That would be
unhackable.
That would be
big time. Much like a ledger is, or a hardware wallet, Trezor, either one, where you have that physical dual signature. Those listen, guys, self-custody. If you guys have not gone through self-custody process, you need to learn it. You need to understand it because it is the premium, and I would say the A-class model in any kind of integration and security in the future. And it's how we're going to do banking, I think, in the future for sure. My last question to you, James. You've got a lot of good comebacks. I have to give it to you. You always come prepared. Is I want to talk about Sandeep. Now, this, of course, Sandeep likes to throw out a little bit of stuff. So he threw out this little thing, and he says, hey, Solana's chain is unstable. It's an absolute undeniable truth. There's mass exodus of devs to the Ethereum ecosystem. Some people with vested interests are trying to spin this into a Polygon paid for partnerships. This is what you mentioned earlier. And shaming the devs to prevent them from leaving. Woo! It's funny how Twitter is like, just everybody airs their laundry right out there on Twitter. What do you say to that statement from Sandeep?
I wasn't aware of it. I know that the developers are, pretty stable since summertime. That's a good sign. You showed that in your chart too.
Yep.
But it goes back to, again, imagine you were a dev. Where would you invest your capital? What has the most upside for you?
Yeah, and capital is very valuable right now. Yeah. Very valuable. Yeah. You don't have as many errors at your disposal that you had a year ago.
And one of the factors that people kind of don't analyze when they look at blockchains or layer ones is how easy it is to build and how integrated the stack is. So you can just flip up a dApp, you got integrated wallet security, you can tie into a DEX, all that type of stuff. It's all there. And that makes it easy to ramp up dApps. That's why they have nearly 1,100 dApps, most of them built in the last 18 months. And that's what's impressive. So,
interesting stuff.
This is one of the things that I don't like about how this world has become is you have people flinging poop at each other. I think we're all
it's very tribal. You're right. It's very tribal. I feel like this needs to, but granted, back in the early days of development in the web, and what we saw in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a lot of startups kind of did the same thing. So there's a little bit of reference to it. But for Web3, I felt like this would be a different world, meaning a lot more camaraderie, a lot more let's work together, let's figure out these connections, because everybody's going to win on this because we're so early. We need to define first of all, kind of the track forward, but together we need to find out what's broken so we can fix all this stuff so we can get that bell curve adoption moving. And I think that's the problem that disheartens me a little bit right now with where crypto is, for sure.
Exactly. I think, the crypto has enough enemies rather than having to fight against
We don't need internal enemies, right? We got enough guys running out there in the regular streets kind of coming at us. Let's go to a poll real quick. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Before I go to the poll, I want to thank you. I wore my TechPath blue to match your wall.
That.
For the black to match mine.
You are styling, man. You are looking good. That's you got TechPath blue in there. It's looking good. There you go. All right, man. I thought James is out. He's getting ready to go meet a lady or something. He's looking good.
First time I wore a jacket, I think, on YouTube as well.
Oh my gosh. So. Everybody's going to probably comment on that one. I can't wait. Let's go to the poll real quick and see what the audience is saying about this. And that is, overall project has the most promise. Ooh. There we go.
Yeah,
Solana.
Well, that's so interesting. It shows you that people don't care about centralization, and decentralization, I think, is one of the key things to people that people should look at as they go forward. Remember, 70% of MATIC held by 14 whales. Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
I gotta listen. I'm gonna do my homework on that one, okay? Because if that's the case, we got to talk about that on the show and really drill that down.
Nakamoto score of 3. If you can turn off 3 servers, boom. You've got
that's a problem as well. We already know about centralization, and we've seen this in action many times within the tech industry, so it's a problem. Let's see if we got any questions in here that, okay, Apple's recent move to allow crypto without fees in the EU. This could be something interesting. What are your thoughts on so Apple, I don't know if you know the story, but Apple has been trying to, suck in on gas fees, all sorts of things. They caused Coinbase, the wallet, a little bit of flack. But then the EU came in and said, nope, we're going to even the playing field. All this, 30% tax BS is gone by 2024. So they're going to have to roll up into this quickly. Likelihood the US is going to print this as well as a new regulation. That's going to help the NFT market. It's going to help the Web3 devs. It's going to help Solana, with all the different tool sets. Think about the Uber, which one? Which one is it? The Uber app. Teleport, yeah. Imagine if Teleport had that app and then they were sucking not only the fees, but the gas fees and all of that, especially on Polygon with Ethereum playing into this. What do you think about Apple?
Yeah, well, don't discount Apple. I monitor Apple very carefully, not only because of my Tesla position, but also because of everything they're doing in crypto. Just look at the number of patents they've filed, the type of recruiting they've done, the Apple Pay power of that application embedded in the phone. And it goes back to what you touched on
big one.
Very correctly, is everything is mobile. I remember it was 10, 12 years ago, I was at Facebook headquarters. I couldn't believe everywhere you went, there was a sign, everything is mobile. Even in the urinal, it said, we are a mobile company. It's like mind-blowing. And drilling that in like 12 years ago, Mark Zuckerberg, love him or hate him, he knew they had to be mobile first. Everything needs to be mobile first, including crypto. And that is so important. That's why it may seem like a boondoggle to some of these firms going down the cell phone path, but no, there's method to the madness. If they can create the operating system with that native hardware
it's
integrated,
huge.
That's absolutely
I
game
still
changer.
think Apple has something up their sleeve. That's just what I've said over the
many,
past
many
6 months. Something's up their sleeve. These guys are doing some things that it's just not us pushing back. Okay, we got a lot of questions here because I want to talk about Tesla. I know you're a big Tesla fan, myself as well. I exited all my Tesla position, James. It was sad this year. I exited my Tesla position. I felt like I did fairly well. But what are your thoughts currently about where Tesla is right now, trading, I think, at around 150 versus where it's been?
I think it's just shy of 160. Again, I've been in Tesla for a long time. My cost base is probably around 17 or something for the majority. I did buy actually yesterday. It was pretty clear that one of three things were happening. He was selling a truckload of stock, or one of the top three shareholders was selling a truckload of stock, or people who were top shareholders were selling their Tesla stock to get into SpaceX. A, B, or C. It ended up being A. That's what happened. It's just a perfect storm. He has to kind of rejigger the cap table for his Twitter acquisition. People are getting cold feet. And that's
what I
he's
thought
doing.
Was he was going to have to backfuel some of what's going on with Twitter, because you're right. Once you get into Twitter's situation, which is a cesspool in itself from a cap table standpoint, he could be facing a lot more trouble there on getting that funding done.
I've probably built 180 spreadsheets on Tesla, maybe more, on valuations. I looked at every single aspect of the business. It is mind-blowing company. It'll be bigger than the market cap of Apple in the next 3 to 5 years.
I want to get you back on the show talking Tesla, especially after Q4 deliveries, because that's the number I'm looking for. Q4 deliveries to tell me if I need to jump back in.
I think 3rd of January is the time, but also, you don't want to be buying back in after they do the stock buyback, which is kind of written in stone almost at this stage.
Yep.
I saw Tesla a couple of times, 2019, 2020. That thing can, double in a matter of a few trading days. And that's just the interesting thing. So, but this is, again, in terms of my portfolio strategy, I trade for like 10, 20, 30% of my bag, depending on the season. And I have my hodl bag. So there's certain stuff I just accumulate, like Bitcoin, like Tesla. And that's, I know the future's bright, despite these shenanigans that are happening right now between him and Twitter.
I still think that these times are times in which, like right now, I could double my Tesla's position just today, taking the same amount of capital I just had on this, 8 weeks ago, and reposition right now, and I double my Tesla shares, on my next trade. So I may do something like that. I got to think about that. What do you think about this idea of the Ledger phone coming out? So Ledger did this whole thing with their Stack release. We did a big video on it, and it looked so Apple-esque. I know, not the device itself, but it looked to me like it's iPod friendly, going to the next level, which might be phone or other device that kind of is a companion. What are your thoughts on where Ledger is going on this stuff?
Ledger, the wallet company?
Yeah, the wallet company. Did you see their Stacks release?
Well, I didn't. No, I didn't know they were building a phone. So,
well, no, not a phone. Not a phone. They've released a new wallet that's getting ready to, I think, jump or drop in March of this year. They just did it this last week. I just picked one up. They were doing something over their idea of an NFT integration when you acquire one. The point being is when you look at, go watch their it's on YouTube. I'd love to get your opinion offline about that, because it looks to me like they are really doing a lot of Apple-esque things. I just wonder if they have a phone on their roadmap. That would be very interesting to me, because I still think this whole wallet connection is going to be a huge part of this going forward. We had that as a question coming in from Darkstar. All right, let's go here. I'm going to try to pick out one more question. Solana is going to recover well. I'm the opinion that. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's talk about this one. This comes from 808 Blockchain. Solana is going to recover well, and he's basically saying that the community is one of its best in the sector. Now, we look at sentiment. I will actually agree. Solana's community is real. We don't see as many bots in that community. We don't see as many volatility movement, in other words, in terms of data points that we haul in for our CPI. Solana, I would say, is, for that value point, is probably in the top 5, community-wise. Do you think that is the attribute that helps them continue to grow? And what do you think they have to do to build that? Because if that's working, they got to be able to ramp it.
I think they just need to continue on the path of building real, value-generating dApps on the actual chain, whatever that takes. And it shows the other thing that people don't really think about when they look at layer ones is the breadth of dApps. I did an analysis probably a year ago, and I counted all the categories of dApps and who had the most breadth of dApps. I'll dig up that and send it to you, because that could be another way of ranking layer one chains, but having that flexibility native in the technology to build everything from a decentralized Uber to IoT Helium to whatever else is really a game changer. But I look forward to, again, that integrated wallet and DEX, fiat on-ramp, fiat off-ramp. These are things that the world needs going forward, especially with the advent of our SPY coins and central bank digital currencies and such. That's the opportunity. If there's any later one developers out there.
James, we have so much to talk about after the first of the year, because I think there's going to be a lot of things that will start to unveil themselves, both with CBDCs, strategies on regulation, what we'll see in terms of the S&P 500 with some of the strategic companies like Apple and Tesla. So we'll definitely have you back on to talk about that, because 2023 is going to be a big year. Thank you, my friend, for stopping on the show today. You look amazing. So keep it up out there on your channel. If you guys have not checked out James, I'm sure you know who he is.
My little tech path flower.
You got to jump over to James's channel, and that is InvestAnswers. He's one of the best ones out there. Let me pull up his channel for you guys. I've been following James probably since we really got going, and I've learned a lot from his slide brigade that he does a lot of stuff on. But check his channel out. This guy is flying. You can always get stuff. His latest little Cardano video, I listened to this one. I thought it was a good analysis on Cardano wanting to Solana.
It's funny because you jumped on that first. I give you full credit. It's the tech path was in there first, but I took a different slant to really explain to the audience, multi-chain, cross-chain, side-chain, all the ins and outs, because it's a complex space. It is, yeah.
Well, and listen, this is the cool thing is you guys who are watching right now, you people who are watching right now, you are in so early. You're getting a chance to see the artisans at work, literally getting to know and understand how these projects work and why they're so important to the future of our society. So kudos to you for being here today. That's step one. And just learning like this, because we're learning, I'm learning, and I've been in this tech industry for 2 decades, and I still every day am just amazed by what I'm finding out in blockchain and Web3. So thanks again. Have a happy holidays, James. We'll see you next year. Have a great one, okay?
Thank you, sir. Great show.
You bet. Take care. All right, so you guys are tuned over on the podcast. You just missed a big one again. Charts, slides. We just chopped it up, going head to head with Solana and MATIC. What do you put in your bag for 2023? What do you look at for your own strategy? I'd love to get your feedback. All you have to do is drop some comments below. That's usually, and we read them all. Our guys are constantly farming through theirs. There's always ideas that helps our crypto pit. So you guys are as big a part of this channel as our internal team, our research team, all of our, all of our people here, really, our producers, etc. So make sure and drop some comments. We love to get your feedback. That's the number one thing. If you're not in the Diamond Circle, just get in. It's free. It's an email. What's it going to harm you? Jump in. It's simple. Click the link below. If you want to catch me, it's out there on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.